All right, part 2 of episode Game of Wool, best episode yet, but it's not perfect. Look, nothing is perfect, but this major flaw of this show I felt like was really highlighted in show 5. Well, let's be honest, it's highlighted in every episode. They are not showing the stitches. Bubble Stitch is featured heavily on this episode, and there is a brief verbal description of what Bubble Stitch is, but they didn't actually demonstrate how it's done. And it's kind of crazy that we don't when you have 2 knitters in the episode doing Bubble Stitch. I'm not expecting a full tutorial from Game of Wool. However, if you have time to explain what the stitch is, you have time to quickly show how the stitch is done, just so the audience has a visual reference for it. In fact, the only time they've really specifically demonstrated how a stitch is performed, I think was in episode 2 or 3, when they first brought on crochet and they showed how a treble stitches worked. We need more of that, not less of it. But the fact that we're not seeing the stitches being performed accurately becomes a real problem when you get to judging, or if there's a mistake and it's like they're describing how the mistake happens, but unless you know how Bubble Stitch works, it's not gonna make any sense. Even with Tracy, when she was working the Bubble Stitch, we never see her do it incorrectly. When they're doing the judging, they're like, oh, what happened here? We don't get a flashback to Tracy making the mistake. And I think it's because either they never caught it on camera or they don't know what they're looking for when it comes to knitting. And this has been an ongoing critique of mine. I think this is just going to be an issue throughout this season. And hopefully it's something, if there's a second season, they improve upon. Because it's better storytelling when you actually show and not just tell. I mean, that's one of the basics of storytelling. My other issue in terms of the Bubble Stitch is that they kept describing it as like this tricky stitch pattern. Look, if you have a cast of experienced knitters, Bubble Stitch, even if you've never done it before, is not tricky. It can be a little scary if you've never purposely dropped a stitch before, but it's not hard. In fact, I designed this hat myself with Bubble Stitch. It can't possibly be that complicated if I managed to design a whole hat with Bubble Stitch. If you enjoyed this, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss my next reaction to episode 6.